that brings us back to the cigar at hand, which, just like most of Drew Estate, if not all of Drew Estate, has flawless construction going on right now with a razor sharp burn, pretty much.
Love it.
I mean,
I just asked because I knew it was going to end up on my pants. Man.
No, man, like 100%. I'm the exact same way. I actually had one yesterday where I went to move the cigar and the ash flew off and landed in my coffee. And I knew it because I saw the rim of the coffee mug and I saw that there was ash on it. And I'm like, well, I didn't ash in my coffee on purpose. Like, it flew off. I noticed that it was gone. And then I'm looking at the coffee and I'm like, it's at the bottom. Now, shamelessly enough, things had to be done. And I didn't feel like stepping back inside and making a new cup of coffee because I was at home. So there was about half a mug left. The ash was all the way at the bottom, waiting for me when I got done with it. But
so you took it like a Turkish coffee.
Oh, 100%. I watched somebody on YouTube the other day, Cigar Brother. Shout out to Cigar Brother. He put cigar ashes into his ground beef and made a cigar ash burger. And yeah, wow. I mean,
that's
shout out to you, man. Like, that's,
dude, salute, man. That is true fandom.
When I go and I edit that episode, if I can find out that exact moment, if I did record that, then I'll make a cigar ash coffee out of it. That could be a new thing. I don't know.
It could be. I don't recommend it.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but yeah. Shout out to the factory. You guys are just doing. Factory's always, the core of any company, right? Yeah. And how well your factory runs, and whether you're taking shortcuts or not taking shortcuts, it's evident in your final product. There is something called user failure or user misuse, that can happen. So, I see a lot of people, not only with Drew Estate, but other brands, and it's like, here, hey man, I took, my cigar out from my 70-degree humidor. I'm outside, it's 20 degrees, and my cigar exploded. Vice versa, you take it out from nice 70 degrees to 110 degrees out here in Vegas.
Oh yeah, out here it's always a competition with the dry heat.
So, and listen, you lit your cigar, and you're a little lazy with it, and you didn't touch it up at the right points, and all of a sudden you got a weird burn. So there's always a portion of user failure. I'm not excusing every company or any company, but there is a certain amount, and all I could say is take your time.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's another key point about the Lancero too, because that is a cigar that requires your attention. Like the beauty of Connecticut broadleaf and larger format sticks sometimes is that you could puff away all day on those. You can do the yard work. They're thicker wrappers. Yeah. They stand up very, very well to a lot of abuse, I would say. And as Matt so eloquently put it when he was on the show, cigar mutilation. Because that's just the way that he rolls. But when you have a Lancero, or you have even a Connecticut shade wrapper on something, it requires your attention.
Yeah.
Because it is delicate, it has nuance to it, a little bit more so sometimes than some of the thicker wrappers out there that have undergone maybe a secondary fermentation and are a little bit,
Right, but we're also talking about starting off with a product that's potentially twice the thickness. If we want to get down to biology, right? Cellular, when you're measuring the cellular height, and a broadleaf will maintain a cellular height of X,
right?
Until its final fermentation, then it's left with X amount of cellulose, right? Cellular walls that make up what the wrapper is. Then again, grown in full sunlight, right? Leaf does not need to branch out, does not need to expand, does not need to thin itself out and send out a lot of its veinage
right
across a lot, because it's hey man, it's nice and it's nice and tight. So you get like that really thick, rich leaf. It's got beautiful oil still can get retained in it. So what we don't get in a Connecticut shade is we don't get that heavy concentration of oils. What we do get is those flavors, and I think that everyone's a little different on flavor perception, but to me, it's a lot like light whiskey. There's a lot of hay. There's a lot of
grassy
potential grassiness, and people like say those are kind of weird flavor perceptors. But I think that that's kind of the signature of a Connecticut shade, or even an Ecuadorian shade, which can be a little bit thicker because they don't have to use a tapa,
right,
all the time, because of the conditions in Ecuador where they're grown.
Versus
they could be, just cloudy all the time. So it actually expands on its own due to weather conditions. But a Connecticut shade wrapper, look, it's American labor. It's grown in the U.S. It takes a lot of intensive labor to create this wrapper. It is an expensive product because of how delicate it is. Every time you handle it, it's like, just punched a hole in it. Needs to go in the binder now. Needs to go into some other use.
Yeah.
And it's expensive. So
Yeah.
the amount that you end up using finally is very difficult. So one of the cool things I love how cigars is light and then hits you with that second layer of like flavor comes in. So it just feels like I call it like almost wheat whiskey-ish,
Yeah.
where it doesn't have that rye kick right up front, It kind of like smooths its way, and then it brings flavors on the back end.
Yeah, it's got that Buffalo Trace, Weller, Pappy kind of weedy component to it, and a lot of heavily wheated whiskeys that are out there have that kind of underlying nuance where it's not really like with Mashbills that are super corn centric. They're very, very sweet. And with rye heavy Mashbills, they're very spicy. But when you have like the wheated aspect to it, which is probably why like a lot of people obsess, for lack of a better word, in my opinion, over like the wheated stuff,
right,
is because of the fact that there's like that middle ground that they exist on, where they appeal to a lot of drinkers, right? For me, I've always been a very rye-centric person. I don't know if that was growing up with East Coast parents and rye bread. I don't know if, that was, like the Jewish deli is always where I'm at when it comes to my sandwich selection.
I hear you.
So I don't know if that was always the thing, but initially it was very, very difficult for me to wrap my head around bourbon when I first went into the liquor industry. So bourbon was one of the harder categories for me, and I don't know if we ever talked about this, to warm up to as a consumer and as somebody who was actually making cocktails with it. So for me, I appreciated the ryes a lot more. I appreciated the botanical sets on the gins, and then eventually the cognacs and the aromatics that you could achieve with that. And I always felt as though that whiskey in general was very, very hard for me to pair with my cigars.
Interesting.
And I still maintain that it's one of the harder ones to pair, even though it's usually the default for the average consumer. I just feel as though, like, botanical-wise, you can achieve a greater subset of cigars with your cognacs and your gins and other things that are out there. Like, for instance, we have the Patrón Sherry Cask, and I think that this is a good segue into it.
Absolutely. And not very typical, right?
Yeah.
I think only recently have people have been starting to starting to explore how tequilas can pair with cigars. And it's something that we've been pushing on the show for a long time in regards to mezcal, but we're just talking all agave spirits,
right?
Because they tended to be like, we'll even pair gin with a cigar, but we won't pair tequila with it. Like, you're missing a great opportunity.
You as a show, you fully embrace the entire agave spirit pairing.
Absolutely.
Which is beautiful. Everything from Sotol to Racie to mezcals that Joey's cooked up in his basement, I feel like sometimes. I don't know where that guy gets his plug, because isn't he all the way over in Florida with you guys? Like, what is there like a secret agave farm that's like,
you know, I think
on the Drew Estate
he's
headquarters?
got his couple of little honey holes where he gets his
it just
local
floats in on the
guy
Gulf of Mexico, huh?
Yeah, to find him his stuff. It's not always easy. Because I think you guys get a really good selection. I think probably the best selections you're going to find in California, just because the importers are bringing them in.
For sure.
And big population of people that have been on that spirit for a while. But we'll talk about Sherry Cask here, because Sherry Cask, new release by Patrón. You know, cutting edge ideals about aging tequila. And they're aging tequila directly into sherry cask, and
2.8 years,
and then finally releasing a product that to me was like, this is not your standard añejo.
No,
it tastes very, very different. Does it fit the definition of an añejo? Yes, absolutely. Is it like an añejo? Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not.
And I'm a big fan of Herrera Esteli Habano. Even we can go any of the ligas, throw it down with an añejo, you'll be super happy.
Yeah, 100%. That is, I mean, the añejo is the bourbon's, it's the whiskey drinkers agave spirit, right?
Absolutely.
Like that's kind of the whole entire ideology between it. And one of the things that I love about Patrón too is that they've always, and this is kind of the funny thing too, Patrón receives a lot of unnecessary criticism, I feel like, over the course of the last decade, when we wouldn't even have agave spirits as a category if it wasn't for them, and also, it would have taken a lot longer at least. And also, I mean, when it comes to the process and the distillery and the operation, like, there's very, very few agave producers, tequila producers out there that have 8 subsets of casks from all different countries that they use. Right. I mean, the sherry cask, a lot of people don't know this, but the sherry cask has always existed at Patrón.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it for duty free?
Yeah, it was for duty free starting in 2016, 2017, because that was the last time that I believe I went to the Hacienda. And they actually had the bottling there. It was in the core line of bottles. There's a new bottling out that we've had on the show for this particular, because it's part of the estate release now, essentially, series. So it has a different bottling, but it was in the core line. So if you have a regular bottle of Patrón Silver at home, Patrón Repo, and Patrón Añejo at home, any of those 3, that is the core line, essentially, for Patrón. And the Añejo Sherry Cask was originally a red label with a glass clear top. And that's how it was given to me to taste in 2017 at the Hacienda. It was supposedly available at duty frees. I went on 19 flights over the next 3 years and never saw it at one, even though I looked for it everywhere because it was so delicious. And even before that, they were experimenting with sherry casks for years at the Hacienda, because they use a lot of Hungarian oak. They use a lot of French oak at the Hacienda. So, I mean, between Burdeos, Piedra, a lot of the other lines that Patrón has had for a while now, sherry influence has been there in one way, shape, or form or another. Yeah. And it's just it's really cool to see something that is definitely an añejo, but also completely not an añejo tequila.
Right, exactly.
And it pairs very, very well with the Connecticut shade, which is really cool too. Because as much as the flavors are starting to concentrate in like the second, third, and all the nuance that's in this stick, the sherry casks kind of maintain the course.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just it's one of those things where like sometimes you think about it like what would make this work, and then you give it a try and you're like, wow, this was actually it was a good pairing, right? And I follow 2 schools. So I always tell it's people go like, well, how do you what do you do to get a compliment a cigar? Well, you can achieve compliment a lot of different ways too. You either reinforce or you contrast. So, and if you follow those things, it's like I want to replicate these flavors in a liquid, and that's your reinforcement. You know, I call that the bacon to a cheeseburger. You know, they're in the same family. You're adding something. You're looking for that perfect thing that's just like it. It's all savory, right?
Right.
And so you're going, okay, cool. It's savory, savory, savory. I've made a great compliment. Absolutely. You know, who doesn't like a cheeseburger?
With bacon.
With bacon. And then the contrast comes down to peanut butter and jelly. And peanut butter and jelly is taking a savory item like peanut butter and then taking a sweet item like jelly and combining those two things, which are complete contrasts. One is savory, one is sweet. Combine them together, it's like, wow, the combination here really is phenomenal. A great compliment as well. And you can find that. You can find those moments where you can say, I can take something that's really flavorful. Let's say a Liga.
Right.
And you might think, well, I mean, I need something really like big with it. Yes, absolutely. You'll be practicing reinforcement, or you could find something else that's kind of lighter in texture and profile that may help to like cleanse your palate, layer of flavor with it, and all of a sudden you're creating something new. That's your peanut butter to your jelly moment. So how do you get there?
I mean, like, this show is specifically on, the pairing first.
Yeah.
I mean, we dive into a little bit of the similarities culturally and historically from cigars and spirits for sure, but it's all about achieving the pairing. That is
absolutely,
that is the ethos of the show. And for me, it's multiple ways, right? I don't know how much we jumped into the chemistry part of it the last time that you were here, but cigars are fairly alkaline chemically.
Yeah.
On our palate, it dries them out.
Yeah.
We perceive it as not even as alkaline as it really is to our system, because the pH is so much higher than like even the pH that we're drinking on water, right? So when you have that alkalinity going into your system over the course of 2 hours, an hour and a half or something like that, you need the other things to kind of bring you back. And that's why even like for the inexperienced cigar smoker that feels nauseous or slightly green at the gills and a little sick, sometimes they just need like a little hint of sugar to help them out if they're starting to feel that way, whether it be artificial sugar in the way of a Diet Coke or an actual chocolate or something, right? And
chocolate's just a great pairing because it also and this is where some people deviate one way or another. The introduction of milk fats, right? But sometimes a little bit of milk fat can help re-kickstart your palate again, because it causes a little salivation, a little coating. Remember, not only just alkalinity of the product itself, but you're also combusting it.
Right.
And so as you're drawing smoke into your mouth, that has a desiccating effect to your palate as well.
Desiccating, that's the word of the day, bro.
It always is. It always is. So, but yeah, that drying out of your palate, just by the fact that cigar, when you started here, smoke is actually kind of cool. As you get into the second, third, and last third, smoke's a little hotter.
Warming up.
Not by a whole lot, but you could actually realize how much more intense it is. We get a lot more flavor, right? We've also, if you think about a cigar, when we started here, this cigar is unburnt, and we're drawing the combustion through the cigar, right? It's a long way to travel, a long way to pick up a lot of essential oils, a lot of flavor, and a lot of way to cool down the smoke. We get to second, thirds, we've also deposited a lot of the residues of smoke inside these last 2/3. So you think about, combine that science of the burn of the cigar with what the blender put in that first third and what he rolled back into the last third. Well, you know what? I'm going to kick these people in the ass. I'm going to throw a little fleck of Ligero just at the end, so they get that extra uber boost, and you're going like, that last third kicked my ass.
Yep.
You know, and you're going like, yeah, that was part science and part blend, you know?
That brings up a really good one. I was talking about, I was listening to a master blender that was on another YouTuber's show, and he was talking about how when he rolls a shag foot or a shaggy foot or a closed foot,
Yeah.
right, he throws the Ligero leaf right there. So that when somebody sparks that thing up, they get that instant hit of flavor, and they're like, whoa, 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 this guy isn't playing around kind of thing.
Right.
And I started thinking, like...
It throws up a red flag all of a sudden, and you're like, oh, is this going to be like kick my ass? And all of a sudden you're like, settle back down, and they're like, oh, well, it was just...
For those that are unfamiliar, sorry, that was a mic check. For those that are unfamiliar with the Ligero leaf, that is the top priming of the plant, which absorbs the most sunlight and effectively is the most intense in basically the entire tobacco plant. So when we talk about Ligero leaf on the channel, we're talking about it from the standpoint that that is going to be one of the most flavorful parts that you will ever have on a cigar. And yeah, that dude was just like, he's like, yeah, I just throw it in the, you know, right there at the end of the shag foot. So when they're lighting it up and trying to get that whole entire thing lit,
right.
they're...
Oh man, that's actually, it's quite funny. But you know, there's so many things that are happening, you know.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, you know, I really love what, you know, we do on Master Ash, where you know, and I'll try to do it the same. But I always tell people, you know, like use this as a springboard. I know you've got a big monster book of notes you take on a lot of different things, and it's a great way of doing it. And I recommend people start their cigar journal, find out what you like, and then, you know, if you try to pairing with it, you know, unless you have a eidetic memory, you know, just say, hey, look, I tried it with Patrón sherry cask and felt a little sour at the beginning, and then later on it felt kind of like nutty, and then later on I got like some, you know, and then you guys can create your own what I call, you know, pairing Bible, right? And you're tasting guidelines, and then when you realize you've got another cigar, different maker, but it's like Connecticut, you know, it's Connecticut wrapper.
So you're starting to see those reoccurring kind of tobaccos in the blend.
And one of the things that I wanted to say was, you know, we go through, you know, going back to like pairing tequila, you know, which I think at one point was like, that's a no-no. And now, thanks to you, you know, thanks to Joey, you know, we're pairing tequilas with cigars more and more, and people finding that they really like them, and that's great. When you talk about the endemic pairing of cigars, you know, we've gone through a cycle. When we talk about what do you pair with cigars, whiskey, like, well, which whiskey? And then people are like, well, you know, bourbon. You know, it's like, well, that wasn't always the case, you know? And if we want to like go through it, it's like, well, the endemic pairing for cigars has always been rum.
Yep.
You know, I mean, these things grow in the same climate, same geographical area. And so that would have been the natural pairing. Somewhere along the line, we went over to cognac. You know, cognac was the pairing. You know, couldn't have cigars without cognac.
No, because it became a class thing at that point.
Yeah,
and it was like the people that could afford to smoke cigars, premium cigars at that point, were cognac drinkers because that was the premium booze and spirit to drink, and that's. There's a lot of that historically that comes into play, but I mean, there's definitely like sugarcane and tobacco were harvested and grown and planted everywhere before anything else, really. Like, I mean, you could make the argument with the Romans and the grapes, but making it into the New World, having sugarcane grow all the way to the west in Hawaii, like that was always kind of, you know.
Right. Well, we can get real deep into the whole
how
the sugarcane hit your world, so we'll save that for another episode. but most importantly, I think that from cognac we get to Scotch. You know, from Scotch, which was huge. I mean,
we start whiskey and bourbon.
This was like when I started. It's like, well, what's a natural pairing for cigars? It was like, it's got to be Scotch. It's got to be Scotch. And we went from blended to single malts, and you know that whole thing. And all of a sudden, you know, American whiskeys rear their head, and all of a sudden we're like, man, there is no better pairing for cigars than bourbon, you know. And then we snuck in, well, how about a little rye? Well, you know, hey, rye's not bad either.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and now we get to you know, tequila and agave spirits, and most importantly, the one, you know, the shout out to Mr. Churchill himself. You know, a gentleman that had a cigar vitola named after him, and his favorite pairing for a cigar was your favorite, Bubbles.
Bubbles, champagne.
Champagne. So you got, you know, you kind of have, and people forget that one. And I would say, you know, listen, whoever likes Bubbles, I think this Acid 20 Connecticut might be a nice little combo for some Bubbles.
You know, I was thinking it while we were smoking. I didn't want to deter from the, you know, the fantastic Patrón cherry cask. But
Bring a bottle of Dom.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go.
Nate, we're putting it on your tab.
The Moet Hennessy. Bubbles with this.
I think would be really nice.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer right there.
I think it'd be really nice to. It's and again, it's a lot of those, and depending on the champagne as well. Because remember, you know, the people think that champagne is just one thing, and it always tastes the same way. It's like, I mean, you need to try different champagnes, but something's a little. If you wanted to, you know, reinforce, we have something that's got a lot of those grassy notes, little high, you know, little like high grass, little bit of botanicals on the top end. You know,
100%. I don't think that you really need to with something like this, with the Connecticut shade, and I felt like this when we did Mionetto Prosecco, I think it was, with the Undercrown, was the pairing that I did on the show, if I'm not mistaken. That might have been the Herrera Esteli, but I believe that there was either the Undercrown shade or the Herrera Esteli, but one of them had the Mionetto Prosecco in it, and I think that even something like that,
right?
You know, where there's like that little bit of sweetness, but also those really, really nice compliments to the grass. You know, like if you did like Ruinart Blanc de Blanc, or something that was super duper buttery and creamy and stuff, it's not that it wouldn't work, it's just that you probably don't need to go that crazy. Like you said, Dom P. I don't even know if you need to go that crazy on this. I think that like...
No, I think you could find anything that has just, that's got to have that little bit of you know, be a, you know, demi-sec or something that's got to have a little bit of the dryness in there. Just a little bit to kind of, you know, round out that sweetness. And just round out the flavors you're getting on the cigar, and you know, you hit it. You got to have that little bit of sweet in there, not too much, just
not too much, just that little bit, just that little bit. Well, this is a fantastic stick. Thank you so much for bringing these, by. I mean,
my pleasure.
I'm happy that I got to show you something new, and you know, you had something new for me on here, as you always do. But I mean, like, it's always cool when we can catch a smoke and, you know, hang out for a minute. What is the future evolution of Sticks and Sips, where everybody can find you? Let's plug the show.
Sticks and Sips, you know, still every Wednesday on the Drew Estate Rebirth of Cigars Facebook page, so you guys can tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If not, you can catch a show. It'll be posted on YouTube probably a few hours later. So you can always catch it on YouTube. But I think we're going to be changing some things up this coming year. And not to give out any spoilers, but I definitely want to do more on site this year. Hopefully we're traveling a little bit more, so we can do cool things like coming to visit you. So awesome. That's what's we got coming up. So we'll be visiting a bunch of different places, a bunch of different cool lounges like 8, and super happy that we can make it happen.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, brother. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And you're always welcome, man. I hope that you can make it out here even quicker next time, and that we can rap about, you know, what the next latest and greatest Drew Estate brand and then Drew Estate cigar is. I think that these are going to be phenomenal. I think that they're going to go over really, really well. I mean, there really isn't anything that doesn't, but I mean, it's fantastic.
Well, we definitely, you know, what can I say? Super honored to be with you, my man. Here, shout out to our boy Rob.
Yeah, Rob always putting things together for us, man.
Absolutely. So, you know, hey man, looking forward to the next time. You know, and you know, you got an open invite for Sticks and Sips, man. Maybe
I got to jump back on there.
I'll call some people.
Yeah, call some people, man. We don't have any secretaries or anything, so we'll book it. You know, we'll get there. But
all right, my man. Well, I want to say cheers,
hey,
and cheers to everybody
bro.
out there in the Master Your Ash audience and tuning in. You guys getting a world of knowledge every episode. So keep it going, my man.
It's only reinforced, man, by the great people that join us on the show. And please feel free to check out Sticks and Sips. I think that you're in now, what, third season?
Theoretically, yes. I mean, we're coming up on. We started during the pandemic, April 2020, and we're about to roll into like 2 entire years. So, but we decided to call them seasons. So
yeah,
we're in third season.
Okay, so third season, Sticks and Sips, Frankie Drinks, Joey Drew, everybody in the Agave Mafia over there and whatnot. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe below if you found value in this episode. Also, please feel free to leave below in the comments if you're gonna go out and grab the new Acid 20th Connecticut Shade. Let me know, let Frank know what your favorite Drew Estate cigar is. I wanna throw that out there in the comments. So whatever your favorite Drew Estate is, I think that maybe we're gonna run a little giveaway as well. So more details on that in the next couple of episodes, but I think that we have some cool Drew Estate swag that I wanna throw out there in a giveaway. So comment below and we'll add in some feedback and some notes on that in the next episode. But shout out to Frankie. Thanks for joining us again, man, on the show. And I will see you next time for another cigar review. Oh, also, thank you to 8 Lounge for hosting today and making sure that we could do this interview live with Frankie.